Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List Live. I'm Kurt Schmidt, your host, president and partner at Foundry, and I am very excited for today's show because we're going to be talking about all things fear. Well, you could say opportunities at work, maybe. But I've got my good friend Cat Breet. She's here to talk to us all about how to overcome fear, controlling your career, and how to get more fun out of work and just maybe life in general. But before I get started, I do need to mention we are hiring at Foundry, so check out the link, foundrymakes.com/careers. We're always looking for talented individuals, so head over there and check us out. Let me jump in and talk to Cat. Cat, how are you today? It is so good to see you.
Hello, it's good to see you too.
Yeah. So, Kat, tell me about the work you do. You've been doing a lot of you've been doing not only doing live streams and things like this, but you've been consulting people for years on how to kind of find their best selves when it comes to work and the work-life balance sort of area. How did you get started in all of that? Did you trip and fall into it?
Absolutely, I fell into it backwards with my eyes closed. I got a bachelor's degree in sociology because I wanted to change the world and I was fascinated with people. And then I realized I had to go back to school if I wanted to be a professor. And so I decided not to do that.
Yeah.
Flew around the world, chased jobs and paychecks, bartender in Alaska, camp counselor in California, flight attendant. I was trying to see the world. I was a flight attendant.
Oh, that's a good role.
I wasn't seeing the world. I was flying around the Midwest of America, and I couldn't afford to pay my college loans. So my dad was getting worried, and I decided to start doing temp work on my days off. And my very first temp job was at a global IT consulting firm.
Ooh.
I was a secretary, actually a front desk receptionist for 1 week.
Okay.
I had no idea what was happening, but by Friday I had a job offer to become a recruiter.
Wow.
And that's how it all started.
That's amazing. Yeah, I so many people that work in this industry, I always ask them on the show, nobody ever grew up saying like, I can't wait to, work in the tech industry and recruit people or do these other things. So I'm guessing, being a recruiter really taught you a lot about, working with these folks that are looking for work, trying to get a job. I'm guessing it was like a big education really fast as you saw all the way that different people went about this.
Oh my gosh, it is unbelievable. And if I had a clue what I was getting into, I would have been terrified and said no. I once heard a recruiter say that a recruiting job is 24/7 professional development.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have people's future in your hands. And while you are trying to be responsible and help them make the best career decisions, you are also battling all your own demons on a daily basis because it's actually a sales job. And I almost got fired my first year. It was, I was a piece of work. Let me just tell you.
So you do a lot of coaching with folks now. What is what's a common thing you're seeing? Maybe it's due to the pandemic, or maybe it's just the times that we're living in. What are some common things that you feel like you're repeatedly having to coach people on when it comes to their career? Maybe just in the last year. What are you seeing?
Yes, it's been a common theme for the last 23 years, and it is all in high definition right now. Two things. First of all, people are keenly aware that family first, that they're keenly aware of why they work, and that they want work to fuel their life, not the other way around. So it was just a really rude awakening that there were a lot of people who were high achievers working full tilt, and they'd been ignoring the home front or just not paying enough attention to it. So number one priority for people is family first. They want to build a career that feeds the kind of life they want. So that is both exciting and terrifying for people, because once they acknowledge that and say it out loud, then they have to start doing things differently at work.
Yeah.
And setting some boundaries and making some choices and saying no. And that is hard, and it's new for a lot of people.
Yep. Yeah. Would you say, and I've seen this, maybe you've seen it too, but in the last year since the pandemic, I've seen so many people leaving corporate jobs and starting their own consultancies, their own businesses. Would you say you've seen that happening a lot as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've been in consulting for 23 years, and it's so funny. People are like, it's new. No, it isn't. But it's not new. But what is new and exciting is it is so much easier now to become a highly paid consultant. I've got a course around it. I coach people around it. It is so much easier today than it was 2 decades ago. Yes, people right now are choosing to do that in greater numbers because of the pandemic, and also because it's just so much easier. The technology is there. You no longer need to give away 50% of your revenue to a staffing firm. You can actually find your own clients. There are platforms, there are LinkedIn. There's so many ways for you to find, connect, nurture, and win your own business. That's exciting. There's so many tools that are affordable for solopreneurs. So it's just a really exciting time to go out on your own. And it gives you that flexibility and freedom that people are so hungry for right now.
Yeah. And I think the scary thing for people that I've seen is that balance of being the doer and the salesperson all at the same time. I think, even when I was younger, I had my own website business for a while, and being able to focus on sales and building websites, 15, 20 years ago was really hard. I didn't want to be both. Like, I felt like I could be good at if I was just focused on one thing versus the two things at once. And so that kind of made me feel like maybe I should just go get a job. And then, but what I see happening more these days is some of these people that are leaving these larger companies are actually taking on those companies as their first clients, which I think is just amazing, where they're like leaving, and then the next thing they know, they're turning around and their boss is hiring them at a higher hourly rate.
And I'm actually thrilled that you brought that up, because I talk to people when they want to start their own business. I say, well, there are 3 ways you can go. You can start small, which is side gigs, side projects while you keep the security of a full-time job. Start small. You can start easy by hooking your first gig through either a staffing or a consulting firm, which can be a beautiful way to get started. Or you might get laid off, furloughed, whatever it is, and go back to your former employer and say, hey, you miss me? I knew you would. No, I don't want to come back full time, but I'd love to come back and do some project. That actually is the way I first got started with my own business. I did not intend it, but my former employer said, oops, we let you go too soon. So that's what I call starting easy. And then going big is where you literally hang your own shingle. You declare to the world, I'm starting my own business. Here's what I'm calling it. But that middle place, absolutely, you can pick up. So number one, it's a great way, lower your risk, known commodity, way to get into it. It's also a wonderful way for you to build up your confidence and give yourself a little bit of time to build your reputation, your website, your portfolio, your sales engine, because that is one of the biggest reasons for failure. And you know it, that balance between sales and delivery.
Yep. Well, I see so many people that are like, well, I've got to get my website up first, or I've got to do this first or that first, or what if my job finds out I'm doing side projects or things like that. There's so many things that these stories that people are telling themselves to scare them out of it. I mean, what sort of advice do you give these people, Kat, when maybe they're just making up excuses not to do it? I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We can all find 50 excuses not to get out of bed this morning.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, starting your own business, it is a risk and it is scary. But you know what else is scary is sitting in a chair at the mercy of some corporation who won't tell you what's going on and when the next layoffs are coming. Right. So what do I do to help people? First of all, I help them sort of reframe how they think about it and say, listen, I know you think full-time salaried is more secure, but let's just take a look at the new world of work. The average person's globally changing jobs every 4.5 years. The 30-year career is gone. So that perception of security is really out the window. So once I get them to acknowledge that, it allows them to open up a little bit to say, oh my gosh, you're right. And I said, now let's talk about what you can do to give yourself a little more security. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a side hustle. Maybe it's starting your own business. Maybe it's just being open to whatever comes next. That's another thing, is educating, giving them permission and belief that, you know what? You can try it on for size. Yeah. You can go out on your own for the next 2 years, decide you hate it, and go back to full time. No harm, no foul. You don't have to make a decision about the rest of your life. This is just what's next. Yep. And then the third thing I help them do is zero in on, what do you love to do? Who do you want to help? What's the value? So really zeroing in on, if I could handpick my perfect client, it would be Kurt Schmidt. Here's what I'd be doing for him. Here's why he'd buy from me. Here's the value. Really get focused in on that target that is that sweet spot between your passion and your skills and experience. Then the rest of it becomes easier. But then once I get them doing all that stuff, then we do the most important thing, face the fear. So and by now I've gotten them excited and they're getting a little more open to it. And then we do the scary stuff, which is, what are you really afraid of? Like, I know, okay, you're afraid you won't be able to find clients. What's the real fear? That I won't be able to feed my family. Okay, is that fear legitimate? Yes, I'm up to my hocks in debt. I have no cash reserves. Okay, that's a legitimate fear. Let's talk about what you can do to pay off debt, get some cash reserves. So I help them go in deep on, what are you really afraid of? Failure. Well, what does that mean? And what's the worst that can happen? If you don't make it or don't like it on your own, what's the worst that can happen? And then my favorite question, if disaster strikes, it's a miserable failure, what will you do? And that is the moment where most people say, oh, well, I'd go get another job. Yeah. And they realize that if their biggest fear happens, they actually are going to have some choices and they're going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, in to that sort of perspective, I mean, that's what I've also seen people that maybe try that, and it's surprisingly really valuable for their careers because it gets them out, they're networking more, they're meeting other people in the industry. So it's not even about just creating this whole nother lifestyle and job and things, but it can really fuel your ability to network with people that can help lift you up even more so in your career. So, one of the pieces of advice I've given to people is, like, you don't need to look at it like there's some deadline, like I'm going to quit my job by 2022, January 1st, 2022, and I'm going to do this full time, or else, hell or high water or whatever. But it could just be, I'm doing this to expand my skills and my network too. And hopefully there's another piece of income. That would be great. Right?
Absolutely. And then the other piece that I love helping people figure out is find that why.
Yeah,
Why are you really attracted to starting your own business or becoming a CEO?
right.
Where's the fire? Find the fire. And that's, psst, that's what I really do. It's what I've been doing for 23 years. Yes, I've been a recruiter and a headhunter.
Yeah, yeah.
I've sold consultants. Underneath all of it, I'm really helping people find their fire at work, because when you find your fire, guess what shows up? Your best talents, your skills, your hunger to learn, your hunger to accelerate. And all of a sudden, you're a rock star in that space. So figure out why, what do you want to do and why? And a lot of people don't spend enough time on really getting clear on what they want and why they want it. Once they do that, the rest sort of falls in place.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I found, and I've said this on the show many times, there's two types of people in the world. There's people who have a coach, and then people who don't know they need a coach. And what I find is that sometimes having somebody, it's so valuable to have someone like yourself, Kat, who's experienced in this and has heard this story 1,000 times, to come in and say, yep, heard it before. Let's go through these steps. And sometimes you just need that outside person giving you a little kick to get you over that outside. Because one of the things that was hard for me in my early days as an entrepreneur is I kept waiting for somebody to give me permission, somebody to tell me it was okay, that you should go and do this. And I would go and tell people, hey, I'm thinking about starting my own business or doing that. And they're like, cool. And I'm like, do you think I should? And they're like, sure. I'm like, where's why isn't somebody telling me like you should go do it? Like, and I didn't realize at the time, like having that person that was specifically I communicated with, that I need their help coaching me to that position, would have made a huge difference.
Absolutely. Something else interesting, and I know you've seen this too, Kurt, is that zeroing in on the figuring out what you want and why.
Yeah.
On the flip side, there are people who are thinking they should go start their business because people are telling them they should.
Right.
So on the one hand, you and I were waiting for permission, or maybe somebody tells
Right.
us we were good enough.
Yeah,
There
waiting
are
for
other
the act
people-
of God to happen.
Yeah. So there's that camp. And then there's the camp of people who don't really want to start their own business, but people keep saying, you'd be great, you should. And I've got a little bit of an embarrassing personal story along those lines. A friend of mine is a brilliant photographer. I mean, brilliant. And I kept pushing her for a couple of years. I'm like, oh my gosh, you should start your own business. And she does it only by referral, part-time. And I was like, you should start your own business. And finally, after about 3 years of this, she sat me down and she said, I don't actually want my own business. Like, I love doing it by referral. When somebody asks, I don't want a business. Oh, why didn't you say that to me 3 years ago? And she's like,
Yeah.
well, you were so excited for me. I didn't want to disappoint you. Oh my gosh. I'm not disappointed for you. I'm disappointed for the rest of us, but who cares?
Yeah, right.
So
It's back to that why thing, right? Like understand why.
So if you feel drawn, ask yourself, why do
Yep.
you think you should be doing this? And if other people think you should do it, that's not
Yeah.
a good enough reason.
Yeah, right. Well, and the reverse too, right? If they don't think you should do it because it's a scary world out there, and there's dragons out there, so you got to be careful, right? You got your 401k to think about and all these different things. But as Seth Godin always says, right? Don't wait for somebody to pick you, pick yourself.
Yes.
And once you do that, it's helpful, because honestly, sometimes and where coaches have helped me the most in my career is just helping me get over myself. Like, I had the ability, I had the skills, I had the experience, I had the passion, but I needed someone to be like, why are you overthinking this? Like, why are you even thinking about those things? Why are you even thinking about building a website? Like, you don't even have a client. Like, who cares?
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Every time I just hired a coach. I'm writing my second book, and it's either going to be on fear or career crunch, that moment when the ice cream falls on the floor and you realize you've got to make a change. So hired a publisher,
Yep.
and I hired a coach, got a publisher, and I was like, why am I spending money on this? And I thought, wait a minute. Olympic athletes have coaches. Olympic athletes still they are the best athletes on the stinking planet.
Yep.
And they still continue to use coaches. And it is because of that. Somebody who's committed to your success, who's going to tell you the truth, hold up a mirror, and push you out of your comfort zone. It can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because I've seen where people have talked about having your personal board of directors, which I think is also helpful because you don't have to pin all your hopes and dreams on one person either. You can have people that you feel are specialized and have certain experiences in certain places you can go to about specific things, like certain people, friends of mine, I would never go to for financial advice, never. But when it comes to, ways to engage with an audience or, better ways of public speaking, absolutely, And so for me, like being able to build up that group and being able to identify them and being able to have a relationship and being clear and intentional as well, saying, I need this from you, right? Don't just go out and be like, what do you think about this? Explain, and back to your question about understanding, if you know what the why is, you can explain it to that person. This is why I'm asking you this. These are the things I'm weighing. I'm asking you because of this experience that I know that you have, and I would love your opinion. I think where it happens, where people are not as intentional, where they kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's a Minnesota Midwest passive aggressive thing where they're like, I don't know, what do you think about this? I don't want to tell you I'm fully committing to it because you might think I'm dumb, or you know what I mean? Like, I think there's, again, going back to getting over yourself, I think is really important. There's not much of a question there, Kat. I apologize. I just go on a rant sometimes.
No, and we do blame the Midwest culture a lot, but I just was on a podcast with someone in Australia 2 days ago, and she had all these same issues too. So
really?
I think sort of the human condition, right? I mean, it's part of our beauty and part of our crutch is that we do care what other people think, and we are seeking it out and things like that. But yeah, don't wait. You mentioned Seth Godin earlier.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes that carries me through every day is up on my wall. Nobody ever once pops to the top. You walk there one step at a time, each a failure until it's not. So, I mean, that is so beautiful. Nobody gets there overnight. It looks like they didn't. They walked there one step at a time. And the second part of that, failure, if you want to create your dream life and your dream career and business, you have to fail to learn and move ahead. And that's hard. Yeah.
Well, and again, if you look at any successful person, maybe a famous person, which is where we spend a lot of our time focused on, glamorizing billionaires and things, you see, if you look at their career, backwards, from where they're at now back, everything seems to make sense, right? But at the time, when they're going through it in real time, it's a nightmare, right? Like Oprah was fired at 23 years old, and because she wasn't Oprah yet, But at the time, I'm sure she was like, "Oh, my career's over, my life is over, I'm never going to be anything." Where that happens to a lot of folks, right? And I think it's back to, again, surrounding yourself with the right people, but also knowing that there's people like yourself out there, Kat, that I can reach out to and say, "Hey, I'm stuck. Where should I go? What should I?" where do I start?
Absolutely.
It's important.
It is.
So with that you're working on this new book, or you're working on which book it's going to be. Do you see, what do you see happening over the next year, 2 years? Do you see more people focused on the ability to build their own, either their own career on their own? Do you see people going back to the corporate America because they're scared? What do you feel like the groundswell is in the people you're talking to these days?
The groundswell is going to be a mixture of both, leaning toward your own thing, either a side hustle. I tell you, a couple of things. First of all, remote work is here to stay.
Yep.
And top performers are not going to settle for the cube farm ever again.
Yep.
So if you're trying to keep your top talent or woo top talent, you're going to have to adjust your corporate policy and be open to flexibility, because everybody's tasted it. It used to be just a few of us. Now everybody knows how awesome it is, and they're going to insist. So that's there. In terms of starting your own business, always in a market like this, yes, there are going to be a lot of people that get into it, but it's partly the pandemic and where we are. It's also partly a generational thing. And I know you see this because you're hiring right now at the Foundry. Here's what 20 and 30 somethings know that those of us with a bunch of gray hair didn't. The 30-year careers are done.
Yep.
You can start your own business. There are so many young people in their 20s that already have lucrative side businesses. So that's just sort of a part of their fabric, and it's the way they are growing up together. And so people are going to be, whether they're full-time or starting their own full-time business, they're always going to have something else bubbling on the edges, which is just terrific. So, flexible remote work, and at least a side hustle, if not your own business. And to people that are scared of this, I just remind them, hey, 50 years ago, maybe it's now 60 or 70, there was no 401k. There was no health insurance plan. Maybe you worked for one company your whole life, but it was paycheck to paycheck. I mean, you're running your own business is how human beings fed themselves forever until recently. So it sounds scary, but it really isn't.
Yeah. And like you said, you don't have to, just jump off into the deep end either. You can start small and build your way over time. And what I found in that ability to build small is that there will be signs over time, whether or not you're doing the right thing. And they won't be these huge like semi trucks that T-bone you, it'll be small little pebbles that'll bounce off and be like, maybe a little different direction here, a little direction there, instead of feeling like, oh, I got to go out and get business cards,
Right. Well, and I will tell everyone, you've mentioned the website a couple of times. It sounds like you and I had that same crutch. Like I felt I couldn't hit the streets until I had a beautiful website and beautiful marketing material in a folder with my company logo stamped on it. And, I was waiting to look good enough. And my husband and business partner said, nobody buys websites. Nobody buys marketing slicks. They're buying you. Get out there and talk to people. And on the day that's never going to come, when somebody says, why don't you have a website? You can laugh and say, I know, I'm working on it.
Yep, I'm working on it. Anyways, what can I do for you today? I'm glad you reached out. Now let's talk about something that matters. Yeah, no, I mean, even Foundry, our company, I mean, we didn't have a website for the first 6 months being in business. It wasn't the focus. Being a good steward with our employees and our clients was our focus. And talking about ourselves was, second, came later, And I think it's the same thing with people. If you are focused on creating a great experience, creating a great environment, doing good work, those things will come, and it's something my father always taught me was focus on the work and the rewards will come. If you focus on the rewards, you're never going to make it because there's no focus on the work, And so you've got to have that focus on doing great work, doing good work. And I'm telling you, people can call it karma. They can call it whatever they want. But doing good things, I truly believe, creates opportunities for good things to come to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Kat, if I want to know more about the work you do, and you do live shows, twice a week now? Twice a week, right?
I do. Yep.
They're
Tuesdays
fantastic.
and
I tell
Thursdays.
everybody who's watching, go and follow Kat and listen to her. She's a much more earlier bird than me. I do mine in the afternoon. She's up doing them early, and it's such fantastic content. So thank you, Kat, for all you do and putting that out there. I really enjoy it, and I know anybody listening to this would as well. So if I want to know more about Kat and the work you do and where I can find you and follow you, where should I be going?
Yeah, thank you. LinkedIn is the best place to go because you can check me out, the good, the bad, the ugly. We can connect. Company website, if you're interested in our online courses for becoming a highly paid consultant, you can go to arbez.com. That is zebra backwards. And then lastly, you're right, the Planet Work Show hosts some fabulous guests. Kurt, we got to get that date nailed down for you.
Yes, I'd love it.
I'm live on LinkedIn every Tuesday and Thursday morning. You can catch the replays. And then lastly, if you don't mind, I am in market research mode. My publisher is asking me to interview people in 2 camps. Number 1, how has fear held them back at work? What do they do to break through it? And then number 2, career crunch, that work-life balance, especially for high achievers with family and elderly parents who are just feeling that real crunch right now. Yeah. So if you want to talk to me about that, again, on LinkedIn, I've got a post. You can just pop me a note. I would love to interview you for my upcoming book. That's awesome. Thank you, Kat, for taking the time. I appreciate all the work you do and the amount of goodwill and good content you put out there. So keep up the good work, and thank you again for taking the time to join me today. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And follow, like, and spread the word about the Schmidt List, you guys. That's right. It's a fabulous show. Thank you. Appreciate it, Kat. All right, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Kat is amazing, and I'm just so lucky and blessed to have people like that join me. Thank you to everybody who commented and joined in on the conversation. I appreciate you taking time out of your day as well. So stay tuned. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all the things that you do, because you're awesome. And and it's going to be a fantastic the week's going to be great weather. I just feel a lot of opportunity in the air. So make sure you hit the like, subscribe buttons and all the other things that people say to do, and we will see you next time.